a time of healing supported by community, gospel discipleship, and nature. A new life sanctuary where legacies can be changed for generations.
Hey, my name's Kelgore, and today we're going to be reading a very, very strange article that was recently published in the Washington Post called A Maternity Ranch is Born. This is a story about a white evangelical woman in Texas who is starting a maternity ranch where she can help women who decided not to get abortions. Before I start talking about it, I just want to say a few things. One, there are going to be some heavy topics in here, mostly pertaining to abortion, weird Christian stuff, a couple brief mentions of things like abuse. That being said, I am adamantly pro-choice. I am absolutely opposed to taking away the choice for women to get an abortion for any reason. And I'm definitely opposed to taking away access to abortion for Christian reasons. I'm not going to sit here and question the existence of a God or not, and more has to do with how this impacts people in a real world sense and how it impacts our culture. Yeah, so let's get into it. This is a really, really weird article that my friend Worm posted on Twitter, and it ruined my whole week, so let's go. This was posted on the Washington Post, Democracy Dies in Darkness, and it was posted on November 16th, 2021, so not even a month ago. It's written by Stephanie McCrummen. A Maternity Ranch is Born. Nice. How evangelical women in Texas are mobilizing for a future without abortion. The first picture is just this beautiful Texas ranch and this woman and her Christian girl Autumn kind of get up here walking around on her maternity ranch. Okay. So it's set in Argyle, Texas. The vision had come as she was driving home from the Kroger. The Kroger. In California, we don't put the in front of things. We just drive home from Kroger. The vision had come as she was driving home from the Kroger. It was so suddenly and fully formed that Aubrey Schlackman, I'm going to have to say that name a lot. Schlackman. Or maybe it's Schlackman. Fuck. Schlackman? Let's go with Schlackman. Okay, Aubrey Schlackman began to tell people that it was like
God placed it in my head.
Always a good sign. Always a person that we want to platform. Someone who thinks that God placed ideas in their head. This was last year, a time when abortion was still widely available in Texas, and Aubrey was one more young mother joining the mid-morning traffic along Farm to Market 407 in the growing suburbs north of Dallas. I'm guessing Farm to Market is what they call like a highway. She passed the Starbucks. She passed the AT&T store. She was thinking about getting her two young boys down for a nap when she reached a pleasant stretch of land bordered by a long split-rail fence. And this was when the idea came. A maternity ranch, she thought, and she could practically see it through her windshield. It would be a place for struggling pregnant women who decide to have their babies instead of having abortions. A Christian haven where women could live stress-free during their newborn's first year of life. On the surface, I have no problem with, other than the anti-abortion part. If women, especially women who just had children, in my experience at least, it can be very isolating, because babies are very demanding. And so in that first year, if you want a growing support system, if you want to have like a common space where you and other new moms can hang out and be together and be around your kids, while also being around people other than your kids, I think that that's an awesome idea. I've talked about, community on my channel before. I think that sort of thing actually sounds kind of cool, like from a, high level sort of look at it. I think that that's a cool idea. The problem, of course, is that this is going to be the alternative for these women rather than being given the choice to have an abortion. So that's a little coercive, right? It would have individual cottages for mothers, host homes for couples who would model healthy marriages, a communal barn for meals, Bible study. The whole plan was clear, and when she told her husband later that night, he said, "Yes, this is what we're supposed to do." You'll find out later, but this is a developing idea her and her husband have been coming up with, but this is the moment that it hit her that it should be a ranch specifically. Just to repeat that, the mothers would live on the ranch during their newborn's first year of life. If they're in a heterosexual marriage, they could live in a host home. They would have a communal barn for meals, Bible study, of course. So yeah, my personal hell right there, basically. Real quick, it does get a little weirder later in the story, but I don't want anyone to think that I'm like, this is a cult, this is a death cult, this is Jonestown. Even though it's not like a cult, it is really hard for people, especially people who are the pawns in this game, to get out of these situations. And like these children that might be raised in this situation or in this community, maybe they grow up and what if they're not straight or something? Like, this is a really common problem. So it's not just harmless, right? It's not just some free fucking cottage or whatever. That's not what it is. Okay, so she had told her husband that she had this idea. And then now it was September of this year. So like 3 or 4 months ago. It's December now. So and Aubrey was bringing her vision to life outside a coffee shop on a perfect Dallas morning. I want to know what a perfect Dallas morning looks like. She was setting up a table. She was putting out stacks of pastel-hued postcards with photos of women and babies. She was propping up a sign that read, Blue Haven Ranch, and donate today. Her goal was $10,000, and her sense of urgency was growing because of all that had happened up until this point. Oh no, Rachel. Wait, what's her name? Aubrey. Oh no, Aubrey, what happened? 4 months before, Texas legislators passed a bill outlawing most abortions in the state. I like how Washington Post, which is like, you know, it's supposed to be like liberal or like both sides. I like how they're framing her already as like they went out of their way to frame it as though she's super worried because of this legislation, as if she is not like fully in support of this legislation. So that's just an annoying little thing. Part of the reason I'm reading this is because I am disgusted by the fact that Washington Post wrote this so uncritically of this woman, the entire movement, like all of this stuff. They are literally proposing this as an alternative to choice, to being pro-choice. So just let's continue. 3 weeks before the law had taken effect, and though it was being challenged in court, a similarly restrictive Mississippi law was headed to the most conservative U.S. Supreme Court in decades. The growing sense among evangelical Christians was that the end of Roe v. Wade was no longer a dim possibility, but a near certainty. The time had come for the next phase, a new era in America, when the church would establish a kind of Christian social safety net, where motherhood was not only supported, but also exalted as a part of God's plan for the universe. I'm not going to do it because it would take too long, but I wish I could go through and find every time in a video that I've begged that we have a better social safety net. And as someone who thinks about social safety nets often, the idea of a kind of Christian social safety net is horrifying to me. Christian social safety net. Holy fucking shit. Increasingly, this was the cause mobilizing the mega churches rising across the Texas suburbs, most especially an emerging network of women who flocked to them, and Aubrey Schlackman was part of this vanguard. Her project was gathering momentum, and in front of the coffee shop, she was greeting her first prospective donor for the day. John Oliver did that segment a couple years ago. This is not new, like at all. I know that, and I'm not talking about this because I think this is new, but John Oliver did that amazing clip with fucking Rachel Dratch where they talk about how in places like Texas, women who might be in need of an abortion go to look for services, right? And maybe they do a Google search, or maybe they ask a friend or someone, and they could be given a pamphlet of like, here's like 50 resources for the area. Every single one of the resources in that pamphlet will be someone who is absolutely opposed to you getting an abortion. And it's like women who want to talk you out of it, invite you to their Bible study, give you diapers. The plan 100% of the time is you going through with the pregnancy. And these are motherhood services, Christian social safety net motherhood services. And he also talks about how it's fucking bogus as hell that they're able to do a lot of this in the name of being a nonprofit. And he opens up, like, I forget what it's called. It's called like Our Lady of Perpetual Exemption. And that's kind of more what this video is going to be about. Instead of giving women the choice to get an abortion, we'll just make a nonprofit about it instead, or thousands and thousands of nonprofits about it. She goes to fundraise outside of a local coffee shop, and she's talking to her first prospective donor. "Morning, we're a local nonprofit supporting single pregnant moms," she says to a young woman who read the sign, studied the postcard, and responded without hesitation. "Such a blessing," she said. "Do you take checks?" To be a woman such as Aubrey Schlackman in a state such as Texas, at a moment such as this, was to be a cultural force behind what part of America was becoming. She was a 34-year-old mother of two who wore her hair long in a ponytail and baseball cap, and did not meet all the expectations that could come with the label white evangelical Christian. First of all, that's exactly what I think of when I think of a white evangelical Christian. What, you mean because she's brunette instead of blonde? Okay, I guess this is what they mean by not like the other evangelical Christians. She said she could not bring herself to vote for Donald Trump in 2016, for instance, though she voted for him in the 2020 election. She hardly ever watched cable news. She was not convinced that the Texas law known as the heartbeat law, which bans almost all abortions as early as 6 weeks into a pregnancy, or any law, was necessarily the best way to end abortion. Just FYI, in case most people are not aware of this, 6 weeks is nothing. At the time when a woman can take a pregnancy test, like the kind you pee on, if you take a pregnancy test and you get a positive result, doctors pretty much just assume at that point that you're considered to be 4 weeks pregnant. It doesn't mean that 4 weeks ago even was when you had sex. It could have been 5 days ago that you had sex and got pregnant. But because at that point you're about 4 weeks away from your last period, the amount of time it takes to then call an abortion clinic, have them confirm that they agree that you're pregnant. Just imagine doing all that in under 2 weeks. It's bullshit. What she did believe was that abortion had led to a genocide of children. Wow, that's so radical and different of her. She's not like the other evangelical Christians. She thinks that abortion is a genocide of children. What? She believed that the best path to ending it was not only to support the women, but to also help them to see themselves as God intended. As Aubrey believed, as she often said, that belief requires action. And in this way, she was a mainstream evangelical woman, one who saw herself as suited and maybe even destined for the moment at hand. The moment was one preceded by a long and complicated history. The idea of providing a place for single pregnant women harked to a time before abortion became legal, and so-called homes for unwed mothers were often the only option for women, mostly white women, to give birth in secrecy and avoid social scandal. What fucking year is it? Like, are you talking about like in the 60s? Is this the fucking first episode of Mad Men? The homes were often run by institutions such as the Salvation Army, orders of Catholic nuns, and evangelical churches. They were often bleak places where women were assumed to need reform, and sometimes abused and shamed. The kind of subjugation that advocates of legal abortion aimed to end. Advocates of legal abortion weren't just trying to end the Salvation Army bleak, like halfway house thing. They wanted the choice whether they wanted to have the baby or not have the baby. There's a lot of factors at play when someone is deciding whether or not they should have a baby. Blah, 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 blah. So none of which Aubrey had in mind as she envisioned her own maternity ranch in almost utopian terms. I'm not like the other maternity options. Mine's utopian. Sorry. It just, she's trying to set herself apart from places like those, like houses for unwed mothers. When the truth is that's exactly what she is creating. She's just doing it with tomato plants in the backyard. To her, it would be a place of liberation and Christian development. in accord with the beliefs she had refined at her church, one of the many popular megachurches in suburban Dallas that tended to be conservative in values, modern in style, with praise bands, coffee shops, and names such as The Door and the Well. What? I'm sorry. Dog shit culture. I've been saying dog shit a lot lately. It's good. It's a good one. I don't know why they are trying to make it like sound like this lady is any different than every other evangelical ever. Hers was called the Village Church. Just like, can you guys stop being creepy for 5 seconds of your life? The Village Church, a congregation of roughly 3,500 people whose mission included advancing the idea of a divine social order the pastor often called God's beautiful design. The question of how abortion fit into this order was intertwined with the question of how women fit in. And this was a matter that had become so fraught within the evangelical world that in 2017, her church issued its own 64-page statement on the subject with 218 footnotes and a 5-page bibliography. Hey, I hope that your sources weren't like quotes from the Bible, because I don't think that fucking counts. It affirmed that God created 2 genders, male and female. This is a safe space for trans people. My fucking YouTube channel. If you say anything ever that is turf shit, at all transphobic, anything, I'm fucking hiding your comment and banning you from commenting in the future on this channel. Go fuck yourself. It affirmed that God created 2 genders, male and female, who were equal in essence, dignity, and value while having different yet complementary roles. Women were meant to be helpers and life givers. Whose fucking video is it about helpers? I'm pretty sure it's the Fundy Fridays video on Girl Redefined, I'm pretty sure is the video. I haven't watched it in a little bit, but it's talking about how they define the word helper, and it's disgusting.
But let me talk about you as a single, because you don't have a man that you're trying to help right now, right?
Yeah, so I am really trying to embrace that aspect of God's design, but just in the people around me. So I have a dad, I have brothers, I have men around me in my church, and I am really striving to have kind of a humble, kind of a servant's mindset in my heart, because I naturally want to push against that. But when I embrace it and when I have that humble servant's mindset of helping others, of helping my dad, practicing that, helping my brothers, it really is so beautiful and it works really well. So I would say to the single girls that you can practice it, whether it's within your own family, whether it's at church, just wherever you are, you really can practice that with the men around you.
Now, we'd agree that the issue of the other word, the submission word, that's a marriage word. Women are not created to submit to men, but wives are designed to submit to husbands, right?
Right.
You'd agree with that?
Yeah.
So what about a person who would say, aren't men supposed to be helpers too? I mean, isn't helping just something that God created all of us to do? Why are you making this feminine? And does that mean guys don't have to help?
When we look at Genesis, we see that God created the woman specifically to be a helper. We're not making this up. We're not out here saying, you know what, we're going to define what womanhood is, and we're going to tell you how to live it. We are going back to God's word and saying, how does God define manhood and womanhood? The woman was created specifically to fulfill an indispensable role as being a helper.
This is the thing. Everything Christians say is shrouded in like this terminology that means more than you think it does. And like on the surface, it might just sound a little biblical or it might sound nice, but it means bad things. Like they're saying bad things in this language. Women were meant to be helpers and life givers. By saying that, even though those both sound positive, what you're doing is you're saying helpers, women are helpers to men. They're subordinate, they're submissive. And life givers basically like pigeonholes women into like, this is your role, is to create and give life. And of course, what they mean is women in their definition of women giving birth to babies. And by being anti-abortion, they're supporting God's vision that women are helpers and life givers, which is just something that they fucking said. I'm going to get too mad throughout this whole thing, sorry. In the church, this has meant that the top leadership roles were reserved for men. In Christian marriage, which the church defined as being between a man and a woman, it meant that men were to lead. In politics, it meant a relentless focus on ending abortion, which the church viewed as not only murder, but also a grotesque distortion of God's plan for humanity. This is exactly what I mean about shrouded language. In one sentence, they say that women are helpers and life givers. The next sentence is saying that in a marriage between a man and a woman, men lead. In politics, it means a relentless focus on ending abortion. How did we just get from in a marriage men lead to in politics it means end abortion? The church devoted a special week of prayer to the issue at the start of each year. It hosted donation drives for diapers and maternity clothes. It hosted a ministry called Young Lives in which members mentored pregnant teenagers. It offered recovery groups that were advertised on the stalls in women's bathrooms. Are you considering abortion or struggling from the effects of past abortion? Know that God loves you, redeems, and heals. Aubrey embraced all of this. And if she sometimes had questions, her reaction was to try harder to understand what she believed to be God's wisdom. You heard it here first, guys. If you sometimes have questions, try harder to understand what you believe to be God's wisdom. Okay. She attended Bible study every week. She went to church every Sunday, including a recent service that culminated with a young woman stepping into the baptismal pool at the front of the sanctuary and reading a statement, her voice shaking. The woman explained that she'd had an abortion in college and how she had felt the guilt and shame of that until she found the grace of Jesus. Geez, I wonder why she felt guilt and shame. And now I'm free, she said. And when the young woman rose from the water, Aubrey wiped away tears and joined the congregation in a standing ovation. She was there on a Sunday after the heartbeat law took effect, when her pastor addressed questions that he was getting about the proper Christian response to women who become pregnant after being raped or trapped in abusive situations. I really want to hear what her pastor has to say about this. That's definitely who I would go to address questions on the matter. My heart breaks for that, he told the congregation, but the answer can't be, well, let's kill the baby. The church's answer is, let us come alongside you and love you and walk with you and help you in any way we can, with our money, with our houses, with our homes. After a woman is you-know-whatted and ends up pregnant and doesn't want the baby that resulted from that, the Christian solution is make her have the baby, but give her some money or let her stay at your house? But she doesn't want the baby. So why are you making her do that? That is two things that she didn't do consensually. Not only the initial attack, but now she's being forced to spend the rest of her life taking care of this child. It is not just a 9-month thing. I mean, I guess she could put it up for adoption, but I'm sure that they would dissuade her from doing that too, which is a whole other conversation that conservatives oftentimes want you to go through with a pregnancy, but then don't want to take care of the child once the child enters society, right? And I mean, that's what Aubrey is saying she's going to do differently, which we'll get to in a second, once we get through all the fucking rhetoric that Washington Post has laid out here for us. As she heard the words, Aubrey felt a wave of encouragement. It was exactly what she and her husband, Brian, were already trying to do. So then they show a picture of Aubrey and her kids next to their little chicken coop. This is my favorite part of the article because it describes her whole vibe. Their home was a beige brick fixer-upper in a town called Argyle, roughly 30 miles northwest of Dallas. It had a gray Ford Explorer in the driveway and a welcome wreath on the front door. And inside was an open floor plan renovated in the modern rustic style of the Christian HGTV stars Chip and Joanna Gaines. White shiplap walls, tile floor resembling rough-hewed planks, a farmhouse table, built-in bookcases with titles such as Every Woman's Desire and Try Softer. Oh my God. And Try Softer, classics of modern evangelical literature that advanced a certain kind of Christian womanhood, Christian manhood, and Christian marriage. On a wall was a giant photo of Brian hugging Aubrey in the sun. I think we already knew that photo was there, though. Okay, but I want to know where she keeps her framed picture of Bud Dwyer. I just can't believe how perfectly they laid out, like, the absolute least favorite aesthetic of mine in the world. White evangelical farmhouse, basically. The house also had an extra 4th bedroom, and this was the main reason they had chosen it. This part freaks me out so bad, hold on. The house also had an extra 4th bedroom, and this was the main reason they had chosen it. A decision that had come before Aubrey had had her vision, before the heartbeat law passed, before the Schlackmans had become... How do I say their name again? Before the Schlackmans had come to believe that building a maternity ranch was God's plan for their lives. I love how WAPO is just like fucking legitimizing her fucking visions here. The reason they bought this house was because it has an extra 4th bedroom. What they were sure of from the start was that they wanted a house with room to welcome the stranger, as the Bible commanded. Imagine if everyone didn't have a fucking extra bedroom in their house. Imagine if maybe instead there weren't homeless people. How about you invite those strangers in? Like the ones who don't have a house, you know? Okay, that was the kind of family they wanted to be, which was in keeping with the kind of person Aubrey had always wanted to be. She was the good daughter, the dutiful one who grew up absorbing the basics set forth on Sundays all over evangelical America, including in her hometown of Amarillo, Texas. Is it Amarillo? I think they say it Amarillo. The basics set forth were follow God's plan and earn eternal salvation, rebel and face eternal suffering. She was 10 years old when she made her choice, standing behind the thick curtain of a baptismal pool, a hymn called As the Deer Panteth for the Water playing. Wow, they have so many details about this girl's weird life. And when she emerged, wait, did they actually get in the pool? I don't know. Don't tell me. I don't want to know. She recalled feeling nothing more holy than the warm approval of the parents she loved and a congregation that welcomed her as a child of God. She became a good teenager, the kind who went to youth group and spent summers at the Christian camp her grandfather founded, and as Aubrey described the rest of her upbringing, if I could think of a picturesque American childhood, mine was pretty close. Oh, so since you had a perfect life growing up and a perfect childhood, maybe you shouldn't be the judge of whether or not other people should be forced to bring children into not so ideal situations, subpar living conditions. You know what I'm saying? I just think that that's so gross to let this woman who admits that she had a picturesque American childhood surrounded by Christian camp and loving parents and all that, she gets to decide the fate of other women. And people like her get to decide the fate of other children who will grow up in foster care. Okay? Just the whole thing just kills me. As a mom, the idea of kids out there not having parents breaks my fucking heart. So all of this, that's another reason all of this pisses me off so bad, is that these aren't the realities for some people. Getting to keep your kid and live on a maternity ranch and have everything given to you, and they go to Christian summer camp and stuff. That's not how it's going to be for most people. You're going to be able to serve 15 moms a year or something? What about everybody else? Not to say that this is a solution. I'm saying the opposite. This is not a fucking solution. After that came college, Dallas, and her first serious feeling of rebellion in the form of a boyfriend Aubrey described as not like anyone I'd ever known, who fell out of the picture after Brian wrote her a love letter that began, "I just thought I could encourage you less with how I see you and more how I know God sees you." So we'll talk about Brian more in a minute, but that's basically how they got together. Is he wrote her a manipulative letter about how God views her. It's so gross to me that these people think that God cares about their college relationships. No one cares. 10 years into the marriage, there were times when Aubrey chafed at what she believed God required of her. She struggled with the concept of submitting to Brian's leadership. Yeah, because it's not natural. It's not good. It's not real. His leadership is made up. It's a fucking construct that they taught you at fucking Christian school. Though his earnest and self-deprecating manner made it easier. She did not love being pregnant. Oh, this is my favorite part. She goes on to describe how awful pregnancy is. Let's go. Let's hear it. Especially after suffering an excruciating form of rheumatoid... I cannot talk. Especially after suffering an excruciating form of rheumatoid... Just read it. You read it. Especially after suffering an excruciating form of rheumatoid arthritis, probably triggered by the birth of her first son. The condition left her so racked with pain that she would sometimes sit at the edge of her bed at night and cry, thinking, I could kill myself, but then I'm leaving my husband and my son, and understanding why women with less support than she had might choose to have an abortion. But the lesson she ultimately took from the episode was not about politics or God's indifference, but rather what God did to humble me. That's unfortunate. You didn't ultimately take anything out of this about politics or God's indifference. That's really unfortunate that you didn't get anything out of that situation that would have meant anything to anyone at all. Instead, you went with the fucking fully individualistic idea that God did it on purpose to you to make you better or something. Real quick though, I would like to just highlight how dangerous pregnancy is, especially for people who have other conditions. Because of that, birth control should be more readily available, free, etc. They're also making it harder to get birth control. But also, birth control can cause a lot of issues for people, and people who have conditions or take other medication sometimes cannot safely take certain types of birth control. So then they are at risk for pregnancy, which means they need to be able to have access to an abortion if they need it. Okay? It's not as simple as these people just make it sound. You don't just need to suffer through the pain and then go and make other people fucking do it too. But instead, this is what she got out of it. I realized my life is not really mine, she said. To remind herself, she got a tattoo on her right forearm referencing a favorite line of a favorite hymn about bowing in humble adoration. And that was who Aubrey Sklackman had become by the time she and Brian moved into the house in Argyle. She and Brian moved into the house in Argyle, where one day Brian came home and told her that God had put it on his heart that the kind of stranger that they should welcome was a single, pregnant woman. He was really specific, said Aubrey. I was like, well, okay then. You're being really specific about the fact that we need to let a single pregnant lady come live with us. After that came the morning Aubrey had her own vision. Wow. So not any outside influence, just her making her own visions in her head. No one else is putting them there for her, I guarantee it. Which was so vivid that she posted a description of it on Facebook. To her surprise, she was soon flooded with messages from women who were, in so many ways, versions of herself. Evangelical women pursuing what they considered to be God-given missions. This is really the part of the article I have a huge problem with. You guys know that I don't like nonprofits. The people who work at nonprofits, I think, are often just trying to do something good. I mean, nonprofits as a whole systemically, let's just say this. If nonprofits were going to fix our problems, they would have done it by now, because there are so many fucking nonprofits. It's like 1 in 10 private employees works for a nonprofit or something. This is the thing, is she was flooded by women who were in so many ways versions of herself. Evangelical women starting nonprofits. She met a woman from church who founded a nonprofit called the Sparrow Collective, whose mission was to help women identify their God-given significance, and who was rehabbing an old building into a modern rustic wedding venue. Wow, so her nonprofit helps women find their identity, their God-given identity, and she also at the same time runs a modern rustic wedding venue. So it seems like their identity and God-given significance has at least something to do with getting married. She met a Christian blogger and purveyor of essential oils, whose mission was helping women show up for their lives. Yeah, she's in an MLM. She's not interested in your little like abortion thing, okay? She's trying to sell you fucking Young Living. She met a woman writing a book called Breathe, Broken Soul. Sorry, let me read that again. She met a woman writing a book called Breathe, Broken Soul about being saved from a life of drugs and multiple abortions. That's pretty serious. She met Christian doulas, Christian photographers, and Christian Instagrammers, a juggernaut of evangelical Christian womanhood ready to absorb a fresh tide of desperate women into their fold. What? Imagine typing that and not thinking it's the scariest thing you've ever fucking typed. It was one of the many affirmations that this idea that God has given me is the path that I'm supposed to take, Aubrey said. Oh, so you seeing that a ton of other women like you are also starting nonprofits showed you that you also need to start your own nonprofit? Like, what is going through these people's minds to help them, like, see these visions from God? Like, it's so fucking scary that so much of our culture is based around, like, what Aubrey thinks God is telling her. And we just, like, don't even like blink at that. That's just like a normal thing that we hear, as if that's not like an extreme thing to think and say. Like, if instead of saying, it was one of the many affirmations that this idea that God has given me is the path that I'm supposed to take. If instead it was some like serial killer on the news saying, God gave me the idea that I should go kill all these people. God told me to do it. We would go, oh, that man is very mentally ill. But when we hear a white evangelical lady say it about shutting down abortion clinics and opening up a fucking maternity ranch, nope, that's normal. That's a normal thing to type in the Washington Post. She began working with a Christian consultant who helped women set up nonprofits to do kingdom advancing work. Before long, she had a sleek website, 501c3 status, and a mission statement of her own: supportive community, gospel discipleship, and farm therapy for single pregnant mothers with children. Her pastor endorsed the project. An anonymous donor gave seed money, enough to start a first phase: financial assistance for 4 single pregnant women, along with a Monday meal and discipleship in the Schlackman's home. Very quickly, she set up a nonprofit and to do kingdom advancing work. What the fuck is kingdom advancing work? The kingdom. Ugh. So the first phase of the project is to provide financial assistance to 4 pregnant women and give them a Monday meal and discipleship in their home. So it's not a maternity ranch yet, right? They're just developing the idea. By January, they were looking for women in need of help. And one day, Brian ran into a neighbor in the grocery store. He knew her as a housekeeper and single mother of 2 teenage children, and when he noticed that she looked different, he took the liberty of asking her whether she was pregnant. She became the first participant, and as word spread, they added 3 more in various stages of pregnancy. A 33-year-old manager of a racetrack gas station, a 27-year-old who worked as a medical biller, a hairdresser hiding from an abusive boyfriend. They all signed agreements to participate in a series of activities, starting with a 12-week Bible study. They signed agreements to participate starting with a 12-week Bible study. You are manipulating them into joining your little group so that you can fucking recruit more soldiers for Jesus. That's what you're doing. I mean, it just sucks so bad that this is being fucking platformed as an alternative to choice, to choosing whether or not you want to have a baby. By September, 3 babies had been born. On a Monday evening, the women gathered in the Schlackman's living room for the Week 9 topic, allowing Christ to set you free. They'd each had their own baby shower, they'd gotten help with bills, rent, and broken down cars, and all had pregnancy portraits, a professional photo shoot in which they wore flowing goddess gowns. "You look angelic," one of the women was saying now, looking at photos of the housekeeper in a long, sheer ivory dress. Aubrey's regular volunteers, a few women she knew from church and CrossFit, were cooking a family meal in the kitchen, and the whole thing was beginning to take on an air of normalcy. Aubrey felt good about how things were going, and after the heartbeat law took effect, she began getting more and more inquiries. Hi, I'm currently in a Fort Worth shelter since August, began one message. Good morning, I have a student that may possibly need assistance, read another. Looking for help. 2 mothers play with a baby in the church where Aubrey is hosting the program until she raises enough money to buy land. Aubrey holds one of the babies born during the program as volunteers make dinner. It wasn't just Aubrey getting more inquiries. It was the same across evangelical Texas. And at a megachurch in Dallas called Watermark, one afternoon, several hundred people, mostly women, gathered to discuss what the moment was becoming and how they should respond. Women are calling in very panicked, reported a nurse who worked at a health clinic. We are trying to connect, said another nurse, and not just by saying, you can do this, but by saying, here, we have a list of 150 resources for you in the area. Now, this is in response to the heartbeat law going into effect. So a lot of people are scared and they're basically calling what would have been like abortion clinics, and instead they're being given these other resources. We have to show that we're not just pointing our bony fingers, said another woman. We want to lead them to Christ because that's what they are going to bring back to their communities. So these women who are calling places that would have previously been able to give them an abortion are being directed towards Christ and towards these types of organizations in the area, 150 resources that are going to just tell them, don't get an abortion and we'll give you diapers instead. Literally, we have to say, you are created to do this. Your body is meant to do this. Their body might be meant to do that, like in a purely biological, way, but that doesn't mean that it's right or that it's going to be good. Bruce Kendrick, the director of life initiatives at Watermark and host of the event, tried to impress upon the crowd the immensity of what the moment required for them. He said that he and his wife had already adopted 4 foster children. They also had 5 biological kids, and that such needs were sure to skyrocket. He compared the coming era to the end of slavery. So the guy who runs this event is adopting or is fostering children, which is good. Like, people need to be fostering these children, but doesn't he understand the connection there? Okay, so he compares it to slavery. He says, look at the years after abolition. That wasn't the end, he said. They had to work to change society, to change hearts and minds, and we're still dealing with that today. I think we will see a similar battle ahead. There's going to be a major shift in our culture to a new normal. So he's saying the times when we were allowed to have abortions are like the times when there was slavery. And when we abolished abortions is like the time when we abolished slavery. Okie dokie. More and more, Aubrey saw herself as part of the cultural shift. She was already starting a waiting list for her program. She realized she was going to need more space and contracted a church near her house about hosting the program until she'd raised enough money to buy land, and the next Sunday, a church elder was introducing her to the congregation. By then, she had a video to show potential supporters, and she watched it as it played on a huge screen. Scenes of the women in her living room, their pregnancy portraits, a clip of her 2 boys running around in an open field.
The idea for Blue Haven Ranch came for us in January of 2020. The idea of creating a safe haven for single pregnant mothers with children to live in a community with other moms and kids so that they can feel supported, while also having other families there to disciple them in the gospel of Jesus Christ and love and serve them, all while being surrounded by acres of farmland and being able to walk through counseling and farm therapy with other people there to support them. A new life sanctuary.
A new life sanctuary, Aubrey said in the video, her voice now filling the auditorium. Amen, came the response. I love what you're doing, a woman said afterward. The next Monday, Aubrey moved the program inside the church. The volunteers began cooking the family meal in the industrial-sized kitchen, while the women in the program sat around tables in an adjacent room talking about what it had been like to be in Aubrey's world so far. So where these women are living is Aubrey's world. Okay, so one of the women says, they've encouraged me that getting pregnant wasn't just a mistake, that God wanted that for you, referring to Aubrey and her volunteers. I've learned that I don't have to feel shame, that shame and guilt is the enemy talking, not God talking. The Bible lesson showed me that choosing your child over whatever circumstances you're in, that God is giving you this child as a blessing to let you know that you are worth something in this world, said another. I've gotten love, said another, companionship, I'm growing closer to God. I'm getting to figure out my purpose in life. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I know there is something. They're being told that as long as they are good and they keep following this little program, that they'll get the support they need, or else it's back to regular old society that like rejects them, doesn't support them. And that's the scary part, is that those are the two fucking options that are being like given here, right? Is you can either not get your basic needs met, be poor, be alone, not have companionship, or you can come live in Aubrey's world where you get love and friendship and pregnancy portraits and this little meal every week. Those are the fucking options for a lot of these people. So of course they're going to choose this one, and they're going to give a good little quote for the Washington Post. She had started going to the village church. She had started thinking that her purpose might be to work at the ranch and minister to other women. In so many ways, she was becoming more like Aubrey, who was now coming into the room, handing out little white pouches, a gift for completing the recent Bible study unit on breaking the chains of the past. These women, who were godless and about to get abortions and all that, they came here and now working at the ranch and ministering to women, and in so many ways, she's becoming more like Aubrey. Feels like an MLM. They're just now in Aubrey's like evangelical downline. That's why I think MLMs don't seem weird to people who are like deeply entrenched in religions, and that's why they're really good targets, is because this is already how their society works. Inside were silver bracelets engraved with the words, "I am free." The women looked at them for a moment and then put them on. Oh, like a fucking silver shackle that says "I'm free." I don't know. It's a little too on the nose for me, guys. Here's Aubrey working on her computer at a coffee shop. She has a sticker on her computer that says, "Help her be brave." Okay, I'm going to skip over some of this part. Basically, she starts fundraising outside. They're bringing up all these other organizations like hers. Mothers of Preschoolers. It's a Christian organization where moms get together. Have you heard of the healing place at Cross Timbers? So then she has this weird conversation with her brother, who like clearly does not believe in God. She brings up the fact that one of those letters that her husband had written to her when they first started dating says, "It is so clear in the scripture that God preserved and protected certain godly women so that he might use them in the work of reconciling all things to Christ." The letter was handwritten on ivory stationery. You mean paper? "I'm confident that you are a continuation of this legacy because of how you have boldly and shamelessly lived your life for God," Aubrey read. Anyway, she ended up raising $13,000. Donations kept pouring in. By the time that lawyers were arguing over the heartbeat law in the U.S. Supreme Court, Aubrey had raised more than $120,000, a figure that had continued to rise. Let me skip over some of this boring stuff. She says, "Right up here on this crest, I'd have a barn, but modern looking, like a community building. It would have a big covered porch, a playground outside, and a big chef's kitchen with a chef to teach the moms how to cook. We'd cook an early evening meal each day. The whitest thing anyone ever said." Oh, by the way, she's pointing this all out on her friend's property just so she can like visualize and pray about it. This isn't even a real thing yet. "Then there's a gate and you drive to the host home," she said. "Me and Brian would be one host. We would live there, and we'll have 2 other families. The women need to see healthy relationships. These are just normal 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom homes, farmhouse style. I want all of the aesthetic to be unified." I don't know, just this creepy unified farmhouse aesthetic. She walked out a bit further. "Then there's another gated system," she said. "So then you could picture that on the back half of the property would be where we'd build the mother cottages," she said. She looked out of the part of the property furthest from the road. 2 beds, 1 bath, she said. The mom and baby in 1 bedroom, the kids in the other. It'd follow that same farmhouse-style vibe. I'd have like 15 to 20 mother cottages on 60 to 100 acres, she said. That's like the most Texas thing I've ever heard. She imagined that women could plant a garden and learn to grow their own food, and maybe even learn how to raise cows. She imagined selling produce and beefs to subsidize the cost. Oh, so now they're working to subsidize the fucking farm. It was all so clear. It was all happening. She had already started talking to a man who designed septic systems. She was already thinking about security, mindful that some women would be leaving abusive relationships. "I'm thinking of maybe hiring a female veteran or a female police officer so she could live for free on site in her own place," Aubrey said. "I think the moms would feel better if we had in-house security." I'm sure we'll have dogs. Now it has a compound vibe, you know what I mean? She looked around, she breathed in, she felt hopeful, like she was doing what God required of her. Whatever you have to tell yourself. She felt like how she wanted all women to feel. If I can offer these moms and babies a safe, structured first year of life of calm and stability, that can change whole generations, Aubrey said. And as she headed back toward her car, she started describing another vision, one that was even larger than a maternity ranch. What if Texas ends up becoming a model for the future, she said. What if Texas meets this shift in culture? And instead of having high abortion rates, what if we help single moms become stronger moms to become successful? She imagined what that would look like. Churches helping, Christians opening their homes, Christian safe havens all over Texas, maybe all over America. God is paving the way, Aubrey said. I'm just trying to keep up with how quickly it's happening. And then they have a nice picture of one of the pregnant moms here. So just so we can recap that last part, she's thinking that what if everyone did the kind of shit that she does on the whole scale of Texas or even the whole world. And in that way, we can get rid of abortion rates. We can meet the shift in culture. We can help people become stronger moms and more successful. That's how we're going to solve our problems, guys, through Christ. By creating maternity ranches, okay? Abortion isn't a symptom of the problem. No. Abortion is our problem and we need to end it. Like, these people fail to see that the fucking fact that women are having abortions is because of the conditions they live in. It's not just, sometimes women just don't have a baby because they don't want to have a baby. But also, if your whole culture is around women becoming moms and supporting them in motherhood, what about women who can't have babies? Are we going to support them? In the same month, Washington Post also posted another one, which I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's what happens when people in Texas can't get abortions. Diapers save a lot more babies than ultrasounds. I'm sure that they do, in some sense, help these people, like in like a very strictly material way. I'm sure that they are. I'm not saying that they're scamming anyone, right? They're not getting donations and then fleeing the country with the money. They're truly giving the money back into this Christian social safety net idea, right? I'm just so disgusted by the fact that this is being platformed as a solution. I know this isn't my usual video format, and I just really wanted to get on here and talk about this because this article really, really bothered me. And several days after I read it, it still was bothering me. It kind of also gave me this idea that this needs to be talked about more. And I don't mean the abortion stuff. I mean the culture being perpetrated in a very unified manner by white evangelical people. And it's dominating our culture at this point. It is very, very much normal. This is very normalized. And that's very scary to me. How do I put this? I've been trying to think of a series idea, but it isn't about atheism. Okay, so this isn't me sitting here talking about things in the Bible and debunking them and talking about Pascal's wager and, other things about Christianity versus atheism. It's not like that at all. It's more about the cultural impact of this type of stuff. I really like Fundy Fridays. The Antibot is another good one. I just started watching those videos too by Jordan and McKay. They're ex-Mormons. This idea that I don't want to sit here and argue about Jesus with you. I am just really, really scared of what this means culturally for us and the impact it has on our politics and our world. So I don't know. If this is something that you guys would want to see more of from me, let me know. Speaking of which, if you have any suggestions of any kind for me, I will link my Google suggestion form below. Feel free to drop any weird TikTok things or links, or if you know of a really cringy Christian influencer, I'd love to hear about them. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you guys. This has pretty much been the first year of me being on YouTube this week. So let me know what you think, and be sure to subscribe, especially if you made it this far. Have a good one, and I'll see you later. Bye.